A dark Texas night, flames rising in the distance. What first looked like a small brush fire quickly turned into something far more disturbing. As firefighters battled the blaze, they stumbled upon a shocking discovery hidden within the smoke and embers: a human body. Nearby, a frantic white dog circled the scene, refusing to leave, as if trying to guard a terrible secret. From that moment on, nothing about this case would be simple, and as investigators began to piece it together, they uncovered a story of betrayal, deception, and violence that no one could have imagined. Mandy Rose Reynolds was born in 1996 in the U.S. state of Idaho. Her biological father's identity was never revealed, but her mother, Carla, was already raising an older son when Mandy came into the world. Eventually, Carla began a new relationship with a man who chose to embrace both children as his own. Together, they formed a household where love and stability were central. It was in that warm environment that Mandy grew up, feeling cared for and supported. From a young age, Mandy stood out for her generous spirit and lively personality. Friends and relatives described her as creative, kind-hearted, and always willing to help anyone who needed support. She carried herself with a spark of joy that made her presence comforting to others. By early 2023, another special bond had taken root in her life. She had adopted a dog, a white pup named Titan. For Mandy, Titan was not just a pet. He was a loyal friend who filled her days with joy, companionship, and a sense of security. He walked with her through quiet evenings, accompanied her on new adventures, and gave her comfort during challenging moments. That same year, Mandy made a big move. She left Idaho behind and relocated to Texas, eager to begin a new chapter. The change of scenery was filled with possibility, and she envisioned a future full of growth. Among her biggest dreams was starting college, something she looked forward to with determination and excitement. In every step of this transition, Titan remained by her side, inseparable from her daily life. Around February and March of 2023, Mandy reconnected with someone from her past. Out of the blue, she received a call from her cousin, Derek. He was only a couple of years older than she was and had been absent from her life for some time. Their conversation, at first casual, quickly led to a request. Derek asked if he could stay at her apartment for a while. True to her generous nature, Mandy agreed. She opened her doors without hesitation, not knowing that this simple act of kindness would bring consequences far darker than she could ever imagine. The events that followed reached a tragic turning point on the night of Wednesday, April 5, 2023. Emergency services received a call about a fire. At first, it was reported as a minor blaze, possibly just some burning shrubs near a construction site. Firefighters and police were dispatched to investigate. As they worked to put out the flames, they stumbled upon something no one expected. Within the fire lay a body, badly burned and almost unrecognizable. What had started as a routine call now became a crime scene. The responders quickly called for reinforcements, fire investigators, paramedics, and additional police units. Their reports noted that the remains likely belonged to a woman, based on the strap of a bra still visible among the ashes. The night was stormy. Heavy rain and hail pounded the area, making the job even harder for first responders. Adding to the chaos, a frantic white dog circled the site, barking and howling relentlessly. The animal refused to leave, ignoring every attempt by officers to calm him down. Some wondered whether he was trying to scare them away or desperately leading them toward the heart of the tragedy. As the hours passed and the fire was finally extinguished, the body was carefully recovered and taken for examination. The identity remained unknown that night, but the loyal dog stayed near the scene. By the next day, a passerby spotted him again, still lingering in the same place, and contacted animal control. When the dog was scanned for a microchip, the answer emerged. His name was Titan, and he belonged to Mandy Reynolds. Authorities now had a critical lead. With suspicion that the body found in the fire might be Mandy herself, investigators immediately reached out to the phone number associated with Titan's registration. At first, their call went unanswered, but soon after, a woman returned the call, identifying herself as Mandy. The call had been passed on to the lead detective. Following the usual introductions, he asked the woman on the line to describe her pet and provide her address. She explained that her dog was a white mix between a poodle and a retriever, and that although she lived in San Marcos, the animal had slipped away while she was traveling. Her explanation, however, quickly became confusing. She spoke in fragments, referring vaguely to being on the road, visiting friends, and heading toward Wichita. None of it fit together cleanly. This raised the first red flags for the detective, who decided to keep her talking. He asked whether she was staying in Robinson. She denied it, insisting she was heading to Wichita. When pressed, she admitted she had made a stop at a rest area. Asked to repeat her name, she gave it as Mandy, the same as the registered owner of the dog. When questioned about where the microchip had been registered, she claimed she believed it had been entered under her fiancé's name, which was why they had chosen to call the dog Titan. She explained that both she and her fiancé had handled the registration together. By this point, inconsistencies in her story had the detective on alert. He continued questioning, hoping to clarify her movements. She grew impatient, pressing to know whether the dog had been placed in a shelter. The officer confirmed it was under custody, but stretched the exchange further to test her account. When asked again about her direction of travel, she claimed she was going toward Wichita to drop off the dog. The purpose, she said, was that her fiancé wanted to see his sick grandmother. Somewhere along the way, according to her, Titan had bolted from the car at a roadside stop. They had searched for hours, she insisted, but had been unable to find him. The detective asked for more precise details. Where exactly had this happened? The woman described it only as a rest area, similar to a truck stop. When pressed to describe the place, she could provide no further information. She said the incident had happened around 1 a.m. the previous night, though she was not completely certain. The questioning continued. The detective wanted to know what type of vehicle she had been driving in case police needed to coordinate for the dog's return. After hesitation, she finally said it was a silver Toyota Camry, a relatively new model. At that point, her impatience flared again. She interrupted, saying she was at work and only wanted her dog back. She apologized for any trouble and insisted she would come to collect him, though she mentioned the distance would be more than 120 miles. Still unsatisfied, the detective recapped the story, asking again for clarity. The woman reacted with irritation, questioning why she was being interrogated over something so simple. The detective explained that he needed to confirm why this dog, allegedly hers, had been recovered under unusual circumstances. She reaffirmed her name as Mandy. and before hanging up, repeated that she would head to the shelter to collect the animal. Less than an hour later, the detective called her again. This time, his tone was softer, almost conciliatory. He told her that their first conversation might have started on the wrong foot. Then, he carefully explained the real reason for his insistence. The dog had not simply been found wandering by chance. He had been located near the scene of a fire, and at that scene, investigators had discovered a body. The detective, careful with his words, told the caller that he could not share every detail of the situation because the matter was highly sensitive. He hinted at the seriousness of what had been discovered. For a moment, there was silence on the line. Then, the woman let out an exclamation of surprise. She quickly added that she had been deeply worried about Titan, emphasizing how much money had been paid for the dog. She wanted to know how long he had been left outside. The officer explained that his questions were not random. He was trying to build a timeline of events. She apologized again, sounding shaken, and admitted she could not imagine what the dog might have gone through. That became the detective's opening to press further. He asked whether Titan had run off the night before, and she confirmed that he had. The detective pointed out that if that were true, the dog should have been discovered by morning. This detail confused her. In the end, she admitted she could not give an exact answer. During the call, the detective also noticed that the phone number she was using was not registered under her name. When asked about it, she admitted the line belonged to the grandfather of her fiancé. Pressed to provide the grandfather's name for verification, she grew evasive and finally snapped. She argued that the conversation made no sense at all. After all, her dog had simply escaped. Why was she being interrogated? The officer tried to explain that he was only seeking clarity, but her tone grew defensive. She accused him of being too insistent, even suggesting she was being treated like a criminal. The detective clarified that the timeline was crucial, since it might reveal whether the dog had interacted with the body found at the scene. The woman dismissed his explanation and demanded that he stop calling her. Before ending the exchange, the officer made it clear that Titan was in police custody and could not be released. She replied that her lawyer would handle the matter from then on. When the call ended, the detective's instincts told him he was right to be suspicious. The woman's story was inconsistent and her attitude far too defensive for the situation. Acting on that intuition, police contacted local authorities to carry out a welfare check at Mandy's residence. What they found only deepened the mystery. The home was empty. Mandy's belongings were gone, and her car had vanished as well. The questions multiplied. Who had really spoken on the phone? Was it Mandy or someone pretending to be her? And most importantly, was the burned body found at the fire scene connected to her disappearance? Investigators quickly moved to trace Mandy's vehicle using license plate databases. Their search revealed the car had been spotted in Wichita, more than 600 miles away. This triggered a focused hunt for the missing automobile. While that search was underway, forensic evidence provided the breakthrough. Dental records confirmed the worst fear. The remains found at the fire site were those of 26-year-old Mandy Reynolds. The autopsy revealed she had been shot in the head before her body was set on fire in an attempt to destroy evidence. Investigators also determined that her remains had been placed inside a large plastic storage container where they recovered a spent shell casing. On April 7th, police discovered Mandy's personal belongings inside an abandoned truck left several miles from her home. The pieces were beginning to fit together, pointing toward a calculated crime rather than a tragic accident. On April 8th, the very next day, police in Wichita spotted the missing car. Officers attempted a traffic stop, but instead of complying, The driver suddenly accelerated, weaving recklessly through traffic at speeds exceeding 130 miles per hour. What followed was a chaotic 30-minute pursuit across busy streets. During the chase, the suspect rammed several patrol vehicles in a desperate bid to escape. Remarkably, no one was injured. Eventually, the car screeched to a halt and the driver bolted on foot, racing toward a crowded supermarket. Surveillance footage later captured the frantic scene as he pushed inside. Police armed with long rifles quickly set up a perimeter, warning bystanders to stay inside their cars. Inside the store, shoppers fled in panic as officers moved in. Seconds later, shouts echoed from one of the aisles. The fugitive had been discovered hiding beneath a shelf stacked with canned goods. Officers ordered him out, then dragged him by the arms and placed him in handcuffs. The man was identified as Derek Daigneault. He was arrested on the spot, held on a $1 million bond, and placed in a Kansas jail while awaiting extradition to Texas for the murder of his cousin, Mandy Reynolds. In addition to the murder charge, Derek now faced 15 separate counts tied to the dangerous chase. Inside the abandoned vehicle, investigators found a firearm. Ballistics confirmed it matched the shell casing discovered in the plastic container where Mandy's body had been burned. For Mandy's mother, the discovery was devastating. She had already lost her daughter, and now the prime suspect was her own nephew. In a fundraiser post for funeral expenses, she expressed her belief that Derek had approached Mandy under false pretenses, manipulating her into letting him stay. It soon came to light that when Derek moved into Mandy's home, he had been out on parole for a felony. His record stretched back years, with violent incidents even during his teenage years, including an attack with a firearm. Evidence against him mounted when police uncovered surveillance footage from a store on the very day Mandy's body was found. Derek was seen purchasing a large plastic container identical to the one used in the crime, along with a shovel and a gas can. The footage even showed Titan in the car, his head poking out of the window. Investigators also suspected that Derek himself was the person who had called the police station pretending to be Mandy, though this was never officially confirmed. What was undeniable, however, was the forensic evidence. The bullet recovered from Mandy's body and the casing near the container both matched the gun in Derek's possession, a weapon registered to his grandmother. In January 2024, Derek pleaded guilty to a series of charges tied to the pursuit in Wichita: fleeing or attempting to elude an officer, aggravated assault, illegal possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and theft. 2 months later, a Kansas judge sentenced him to just over 9 years in prison for those crimes. Afterward, he was transferred to face trial in Texas for Mandy's murder. The trial began in early November 2024. For the jury, the media, and the community, it was an unsettling look into Derek's troubled past. The prosecution described him as extremely violent and a persistent danger to society. On November 7th, after less than an hour of deliberations, the jury returned with its verdict. Derek was guilty and sentenced to life in prison. In court, Mandy's mother, her stepfather, and her older brother delivered heart-wrenching victim impact statements. They spoke of their grief, their devastation, and the hole left in their lives. But as they spoke, Derek interrupted, hurling insults and even accusing his own cousin of being a criminal. Court officers quickly escorted him out, but tensions flared between the families, leading to a heated altercation inside the courthouse. Outside, as Derek was led back to jail, he seized the moment to speak to reporters. He insisted once more that his cousin had committed crimes, and when pressed about his own actions, he coldly admitted, without remorse, "I am a criminal." His attorney later thanked the jury for their work, but voiced deep disappointment with both the verdict and the sentence, announcing plans to appeal. For the district attorney's office, the outcome was a victory for justice. In a public statement, they highlighted two key factors that made the case: the unwavering loyalty of a heroic dog and the seamless cooperation of multiple law enforcement agencies across state lines. These combined efforts, they emphasized, brought justice for Mandy and protected the community from a dangerous offender. As for Titan, he found a safe new home with Mandy's best friend, who assured the press that the little dog was thriving. And yet, one haunting question remains: why? What could have driven Derek to betray and destroy the very cousin who had offered him kindness and shelter? The truth about his motives may never fully be known. Some secrets, it seems, remain buried, leaving behind a story marked not only by tragedy but also by unanswered questions.